First of all, number one, in your essay, Climate Ethics and Population Policy, you endorse enforcing family limits through fines, okay, which is a form of coercion that is particularly effective on the poor, okay. Secondly, okay, in your book, in one of your essays, you support the idea of the U.S. denying foreign aid to countries that do not implement population control. Okay, that is a form of coercion. Now, in fact, it's not original with you. That, in fact, has been U.S. policy since 1966. And under that policy, this is how it has actually worked. Okay, the USAID sets quotas for third world countries, quotas of numbers of sterilizations, abortions, contraceptive injections, and so forth. These countries have to deliver. Those quotas go down from the central government to the regional and provincial governments and then to the enforcement teams. They have to deliver. How do they deliver? Okay, with whatever it takes. If they need to lie to women that sterilization operations are reversible, that's what they do. If they need to take them at gunpoint, that's what they do. If they need to tie a woman's tubes while she is, weak after giving childbirth, that's what they do. Okay, it's utterly criminal what they do. Now, furthermore, it has to be said, these policies, as they have been implemented, are racist. They're racist in the large, because it is, of course, the white world trying to limit the population of the dark world. But within each of these countries, it's also racist in the small, because within each of these countries, there typically is a dominant ethnic group which has it in for some subordinate ethnic group. So, for instance, in India, where the show is run by the high caste Brahmins, they stick it to the untouchables. In Peru, where the government was run by the Hispaniards, they stick it to the Andean people. In Sri Lanka, the Sringhalese doing it to the Tamils. In Africa, it's Tribe A doing it to Tribe B, and so forth. In addition, these programs are done in a completely irresponsible way. Okay, for example, in Africa, the preferred mode that they have done is giving Norplant needles over the counter to illiterate women who are unacquainted with the germ theory of disease. They've given out tens of needles over the counter to these people, putting them in circulation according to the UN World Health Organization that has contributed massively to the spread of AIDS. Okay, now we come to China. Okay, now it is not true that the US State Department is responsible for the Chinese one-child policy, as it is for many of these other horrific policies, but it's the Chinese government which was convinced of the need to do these policies by the Club of Rome, which is an organization that espouses these sorts of anti-human ideas. Now, how has this actually looked? You need to understand this. The one-child policy is one of the horrors of our time. It is simply not the case that, oh, it's bad because the government tells you you can only have one child and I would really prefer to have two. No, what actually happens in real life is people frequently have a second child. And the question is, what happens then? And what happens then is this, that if you got $2,000, you can get out of it, okay? So if you're a Communist Party leader or an urban tycoon, you can buy your way out. But if you're a peasant, that's a hopeless sum. So unless you're a really good snoop for the government and an agent of totalitarian control, okay, the child's taken away from you. And according to Chinese dissident organizations, over 100 million baby girls have been butchered under this policy. So this, to endorse this policy, to not speak out against this policy, to allow someone in your book to write this and not to criticize it in your essay, I say there's no moral standing to that position whatsoever.
Okay, right of reply, Dr. Cafaro.
Yeah, and this gets back to this gentleman's point here about limits and sustainability. So let's say, and I think we can agree on this, that we do not want government forcing people to have a certain number of children or even telling them to have a certain number of children. It seems that in China they got to a point where they had such tremendous poverty and so many people, and the threat of such increased poverty because of more people, that rightly or wrongly they chose to impose draconian population policies. So that's what happens when you have 1 billion people crowded into a country. Now, why in the world would we in the United States want to pursue policies that are going to get us to that point in 100 years or 200 years? Why would you want to live in a country or have your descendants live in a country with 1, 2, 5 billion people? They're going to have to start making decisions like this. about government telling people what to do.
This is such a rich, complex, important subject. We could go on with it all evening, friends. I want to close here, and I'm going to ask, as we close, for Ms. Rachel Zubrin and Ms. Kelly Klaus to join me up here at the podium, please, because I would like all of you to have them in your gaze as we think about what this has meant tonight. Please come up, Rachel and Kelly. Kelly's a student here at Colorado Christian University. You might guess from her stature, she's an athlete. You've already met Dr. Zubrin's outspoken and thoughtful daughter. Friends, this has been all about this next generation. The average age in the room is well up there, as Zubrin alluded to earlier on. This has been all about tonight, in good faith, two sharply contrasting views of how to assure to the next generation, like Kelly and Rachel, that they will live at least as well and hopefully better than we have lived in our times. That's the overall goal of what we do at Colorado Christian University educationally, and that's the goal of what we do at Centennial Institute as a think tank. I sense that both of our presenters are so passionate about their subject that they wouldn't mind sticking around a little bit and visiting with you individually about this after we adjourn. We will be in session here again 5 weeks from tonight, June the 17th, and the subject will be a new book called America 3.0 by Centennial Institute fellow James Bennett, who has a vision of how the 21st century in this country can be even better than the centuries we've enjoyed up to now. If you thought all futurists were pessimists and on the left, think again, because Bennett will disprove that. June 17th, right here in this room, the next issue Monday. And looking ahead, there's information on the tables back here about Centennial Institute's big annual policy conference, Western Conservative Summit, July 26th to 28th at the Hyatt Regency in Denver. Tickets are going fast. Get them tonight at westernconservativesummit.com. I'll ask the young ladies to stay up here with me, and that Phil Cafaro and Robert Zubrin would join them here. I'm going to pose the official photograph of the older generation and the younger generation, after which you may visit with the presenters. We are adjourned. Thank you very, very much.
And you can get my book